Well, I'm really excited to bring you this podcast. I'll be joined by a special guest, Brian, who I met just a few weeks ago. He reached out to me after hearing some of my podcasts and participating in the Life After Pornography program, and he really wanted to share his story in the hope that his struggle with pornography can be helpful for others that are in the process of struggling with pornography as well. So I'm really excited to bring this with you. And this will probably be the first of several different chats that I have with Brian. So enjoy and stay tuned. If you're like me, you know your mind can be your best or your worst friend. Our mind is an amazing tool that can do incredible things. But our mind can also create problems out of nowhere. Sometimes our mind keeps recommending the same solutions to problems even when they aren't working. I see this pattern play out as individuals try to overcome their anxiety, depression, or even struggles with pornography, using approaches that make sense but aren't very helpful. This podcast will show you how real researchers and clinicians are changing the way we approach mental health and reveal helpful research-supported principles designed to help real people with real problems. My name is Dr. Cameron Staley, and welcome to the Life After Series Radio. Well, I'm really excited for this podcast episode. I've got a guest joining me today, and I'll let him introduce himself. But we met just a couple of weeks ago and already feel like good friends. So, Brian, why don't you tell us a bit about what led you to reach out to me and maybe how you first heard about Life After Pornography? Let's hear your story.
Perfect. Thank you. It's quite a long story, but I'll try and share a condensed version. I think I was around 12 when I first encountered masturbation and pornography, and that has led to what's now 11 years of struggling with it and trying to figure it out. And it's been, I think roller coaster would be an understatement.
Yeah.
It's certainly been quite a up and down process with lots of events and obstacles in there. And I'm excited to share some of those as well as they come up. But long story short, I hit a rock bottom about a year and a half ago and realized that I needed help beyond just myself, just what I could do. And I found the church's ARP program, addiction recovery program, and started attending that. And that helped me open up a lot to other people, to my friends, my family. And as such, I realized how much connection helped and how much talking about something that in my mind has been shaming me and ruining my life to some extent, how powerful it was to talk to other people about it. And it's not like I was standing on the street corner with a sign that's like, hey, like I struggle with porn, right? Like it was very close.
I thought I
friends
recognized you. I'm like, oh, that's Brian. Okay.
Right. Yeah. My Instagram page. Yeah. No. I shared with very close friends, and I realized how much I craved connection. I'd been isolating myself for a decade. And I know some people go way longer than that. And I can't even imagine what that's like. But as such, I was vulnerable and open, and it took every ounce of courage I had to share. But I started becoming okay with the struggle I was having. And I think a lot of it was the responses I was getting from my friends who were very loving and supportive. And I went through the addiction recovery program. I approached it from a very perfectionist standpoint, as in there's 12 steps and I was going to do one a week and be done in 12 weeks.
Makes sense.
Which, spoiler alert, did not work. I'm here now. So I had my perspective changed a few times in ARP and loved it, actually. I thought I was among this group of men that I didn't know existed, people like me who understood what I was going through. And I had so much respect for every single person in there. I still do.
Yeah.
Over time, ARP became the highlight of my week.
Wow.
I loved going, loved the group therapy, loved talking about it. And then COVID hit, where, yes,
Oh,
I
no
love
more
COVID.
group.
No more group. They merged it online, and I thought I was good enough on my own to just keep studying, reading the manual. And I think it's important to note that I recognized my frequency with acting out or struggling with pornography and viewing sexual images hadn't really gone down a lot.
Huh.
It had helped some, but the biggest change I noticed was just I was happier as a person, because I started to bring connections back into my life, and that's something that ARP really helped me with. And then
Wow.
when it went to online, I thought I could get away with not going. I hadn't missed a week up until it got cut.
So for like a year and a
And
half, these were your people.
I think it was 7 or 8 months that I was just religious, dedicated
Oh,
to
okay.
the program. And then COVID hit. I was out, and that's when things kind of started coming back in terms of isolation. I think
Oh,
everyone feels the isolation that came from COVID, and just being inside, and stresses of life, having work and school and all these
yep.
things, just came at me, and I didn't know what to do. And so the frequency picked up a bit. And it was actually one of my best friends that recommended the Mormon Marriages podcast that you featured on. And I listened to it, and I just remember how much of a godsend that was.
Wow.
That I needed my perspective to change. And while I was listening to that podcast, it was things that I feel like I knew deep down,
Yeah.
but no one had ever articulated. And so when you talked about, like, you're not an addict, I'd always held on to that. Even every week in ARP, I remember someone shared that, and I held on to that because
Hmm.
it just didn't feel right to me. And your foundational approach of acceptance and commitment therapy, you sharing that pornography was actually just a symptom of an emotional concern. Everything was just, it was like someone was reading me my own autobiography
Oh, wow.
that was written like 50 years down the road when they had me figured out to some extent. And so it was so powerful to hear all that. And as such, I got so excited that I signed up for the program like that night, the next day. And after researching it, listening to some of your videos on there, I emailed you and just wanted to help,
Yeah.
because I'd been in a spot where I had no idea where to even go for help. And it was actually a friend, it wasn't even me looking, that brought me to this program. So I don't want to have anyone struggle with where to get help.
Wow.
That should be available.
So that is why you are here talking today. And I think about, like, I remember when you reached out to me and reading that email, and I originally created Life After Pornography, so it would be a private way for people to kind of work on this issue on their own and have an evidence-based approach that was effective for reducing unwanted pornography viewing. And I fully anticipated I'd never hear from anybody in the program. They would just sign up, get the benefit, be on their way. And then as people started to sign up, I'd get emails and messages every once in a while saying, hey, this has been really helpful. Thank you so much. And then I'd get this email from you where you're like, whoa, yeah, it's time for me to contribute too. I need to share. I've been alone for so long. Connection's it's helped me. I want to share my story. And honestly, when I saw it, I'm like, wow, this is incredible, but no, like this is scary. Like, I felt protective where it's like, Brian, you're still kind of working through this and this has been a long journey. And you're like, I want to help. Like, let's go. Let's share my story. And now here we are.
Yes. And for the record, I am exceptionally nervous right now. This is not like, this is not comfortable at all. And I hope, yeah, if someone's watching this, that, yeah, I know for a fact 2 years ago, this would have been the last thing that I would have thought I would do. But I hope that, like you mentioned, it's a private way to go through this process. And I hope that in that process, you can be so accepting of yourself that you can start opening up to other people.
Yeah.
And that's your own pace. It's not dictated by the program. It's not dictated by anything but you.
Yep.
And yeah, that's such an essential characteristic of Life After Pornography that I've loved.
Cool. So here you are. So this isn't therapy. This is not counseling. This is Brian coming on saying, hey, I've learned some things. And the way you've kind of shared your message resonated with me. I want to share my journey, my experience, and you've got some questions for me too. So we were hoping that just having these conversations together where we could ask each other questions could be helpful for other people who are struggling with pornography or trying to find approaches that be helpful for them. And so I'll be offering more of that kind of counseling angle approach, and you're offering that firsthand experience with the struggle.
Guinea pig right here.
Yeah.
I got it.
So I'm curious, when you mentioned a couple of things that when you heard that first Mormon Marriages podcast and started to watch some of the videos on Life After Pornography, they were things that you had already come to know. And that's the part that really appeals to me, is acceptance and commitment therapy really is trying to help people start to listen to their experiences about what is actually telling them is going to be helpful. And it sounds like you had been learning these things on your own for a long time. And it was just somebody talking about them in a different way where it's like, I know this.
Absolutely. And that's always an out of body experience. It's one of those huge light bulb moments where maybe not a light bulb, maybe like an entire chandelier just goes off and you're like, oh my goodness. Like, it's a life-changing realization that, oh my goodness, I'm not an addict.
Yeah.
Or I'm not a bad person because I struggle with this. Or maybe it's, holy cow, I need to dig deeper in myself and figure out what emotional concern is leading to pornography. And feelings of isolation and feelings of shame. And so, yeah, I have enjoyed the process, though it's scary. It's very introspective. You get to know a little too much about yourself, and it's very eye-opening. To share one thing that you mentioned, I'd been having all these experiences prior, and Life After Pornography helped me articulate and identify, I think, was specifically with isolation. I think there are ways that I was, how to even say this? There were ways I was isolating myself, not just socially, but also in my with myself. I was lying to myself like I'd lie
Wow.
to others, because when someone asks you how you are, and maybe that morning you'd viewed sexual images and you feel like the worst person on the planet, you have the option to say, "Oh, I'm doing good," and
Yeah.
then they don't ask any more questions after that. And it's not like they ask you how you are and you're like, "Well, I'm pretty bad because I viewed sexual imagery."
Yeah.
Um, but it was those moments where Life After Pornography taught me to be mindful.
Hmm.
And after I slipped up, or after I made a mistake, I was okay with it. And I just realized I was human.
Wow.
And who'd have thought, right?
Wow. That just
I,
honestly gives me chills. There's a part of you that's like, I'm not going to embody that label of an addict. That just, at my core, that is not who I am. And as you've kind of struggled with this, you recognize I'm a human that suffers and hurts. And sometimes I do things to cope with this human experience that makes me feel worse, that I'm not proud about.
yeah, that's a weird, it's weird to feel human again. I think that,
Wow.
and that sounds very dramatic. I don't mean it like my whole life I haven't been like a person, but I think to a large extent, your expectations for yourself are so unrealistic.
Hmm.
And you say, "Oh, this is the last time I'm gonna view pornography," or all those promises or things you tell yourself. Um, and with how many times you've slipped up, yet still want to be perfect, it's hard to realize that you're still human at that point.
Yeah.
And that's what Life After Pornography has brought to the table. It's like a weird rebirth of, like,
Wow.
you're not perfect. That's okay.
Yeah, you're not. I'm not. That feels so good to hear. Like that resonates at my core because, like, I struggle with the word addiction. I don't think that's a helpful label for people. I feel the same way about perfection, where it's like, oh no, don't have that one at your core either. That's a trap. They're both traps. You know, we're people. We're learning. We're growing. We're flawed. We struggle, and I think about we all have different struggles in life, and they all have the potential to teach us. And like you mentioned, it's really uncomfortable to be introspective and to dig deeper and learn about what this struggle is teaching us. And I think the pornography struggle is unique in some ways because there's like an added layer of shame where it's like, yeah, we all got struggles, but if you struggle with that, then you really should isolate and not talk about it because it's okay to struggle. But that one, though, oh, like that one seems a lot harder to navigate. And I think it's because a lot of the language and our beliefs around this type of struggle, even though we all know we struggle, but this one feels different.
Yeah, I I can't tell you how many times I've genuinely wanted to trade.
Yeah.
If I had a deck of cards, right, and pornography was mine, I would trade it for anything,
Yep.
because at least someone would know, right? If I struggled with anything else, maybe someone would know and reach out to help,
Yeah.
or I'd be more comfortable talking about it because it's not sin, right? And shame shame I think has been the author of my
Mm.
struggle.
Yep.
And it's led into one thing I'm going to start quoting you. Uh,
Oh, this is gonna be weird.
right? Yeah. But you mentioned in one of the videos how there's feedback loops, and you can be anxious about your anxiety.
Yeah.
You can be depressed about your depression. You can be addicted to the fact that you're an addict, or the notion that you're an addict. And that I was ashamed of the shame
Yeah.
when it didn't even need to be there.
Wow.
And it's like this perfectly complex obstacle that you don't even need to fight. And that's why I love Life After Pornography. It's telling you, the whole thing is like drop the rope, right?
Yeah.
We're in tug of war with this problem we've been fighting for a decade, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Been fighting it for so long. We're tired. And in reality, it's letting go of the rope and flipping our perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, something you said right there, I just got this image of this labyrinth, and that pornography concerns presents you with this intricate labyrinth, and it says, enter and see if you can find your way out. Good luck. And
Right.
kind of like what you're saying is, you don't have to enter the labyrinth. Like, if
Yeah.
that labyrinth is full of shame, and then you'll feel ashamed about getting lost in the labyrinth. That it's an elaborate trap in a way that you don't have to enter.
Right. And I think even as someone who's in the labyrinth right now, to some extent, I'm not sure how I can merge this into the analogy, but it really is like turn around, like
Yeah.
get out of the labyrinth, and just stop fighting it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier said than done. I can attest to
It
that.
is.
A
I
lot
think you're
easier
right
said than
on.
done.
It's like, it's starting to see it for what it really is. And often folks that struggle with pornography, they're kind of taught that your sexual urges or your sexuality is the problem. That is the labyrinth. You need to battle it and fight it. And the other approach is like, wait, this might be an okay thing. This might not be something that you just 12-step it away and we're good to go. That sexuality is a part of us that may not be the problem. It actually might be really connecting and meaningful part of our life.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many places to go here, and we promised that we'd keep these short because our hope is to have several chats, because I think this is pretty complex, about the type of attributes or traits people have that can contribute to this labyrinth struggle, you know, where this comes from. There's all kinds of different approaches. So our hope is we're going to kind of take some time to share your story and to learn from one another as someone who's going through the labyrinth and someone that's tried to help people through this specific labyrinth.
Yeah, I'm very excited. And something that I'm not sure if it's just me or if it's a characteristic of struggling with this labyrinth. It's not going to be a perfect process.
Yeah.
And I remember I approached Life After Pornography with the same thought process of, okay, there's 10 modules, 10 weeks. No, I like how you actually tell us to slow down.
Yeah.
You say, I don't want you to go any faster than this. I want you to practice mindfulness. I want you to do these exercises. I want you to write in the workbook. And that's going slow is totally okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited for this and talking about it and being able to address things one-on-one, and it'll be good.
That's awesome. Yeah, if I was smart enough, I would have built into Life After Pornography that the only way to unlock the next module was to do a certain number of mindfulness exercises. Because I want
Hey,
it slower, because even though it's packaged in a 10 module sequence and it's consistent with what I would do with somebody over 10 weeks in a therapy context, this isn't a get help quick fix type approach. For me, what acceptance and commitment therapy is, that's underlying Life After Pornography, is a way to orient your life differently. And it's a way to walk out of this labyrinth. And I've heard what you said so many times from people with porn concerns. They say, if I could trade this with anybody else, I absolutely would. And it's like,
Oh,
yeah, and then we'd be in another hole. And now we'd be stuck in that one too. And what this is all about is figuring out how to navigate this path through life that's full of holes. And it's not like, oh, let's scramble out of one and we'll never get in one again. It's like that isn't life. And I appreciate how these principles can help us navigate life better. And they are principles like eating and activity and exercise and connection. Those aren't things we just do once and we're good. We don't just have Thanksgiving dinner and we're full for the rest of our life. These are things we need to do consistently to live a good life. And mindfulness is one of those ingredients. Willingness is another ingredient. Being aware of your values is a big one. Attending to emotions. And so, yeah, it's 10 modules, but it's really a different way to live your life.
absolutely. And I can't wait to give examples of how those have come in, and it's every one of those principles is powerful and long lasting.
Cool. Maybe share one with us. Like, what's a concept that has resonated with you that you've applied where it's like, wow, that is a different way to navigate this struggle or approach life?
I hope this isn't a cop out, but mindfulness, I'm just going to go right off the bat.
Yeah.
As we preach about it, it was honestly not embarrassing. It was surprising to me how quickly I acted or had my emotions come into play immediately after an action, and I wasn't mindful. Especially with, I mean, the most prevalent would be after viewing sexual imagery and all of a sudden thoughts of, oh, the shame, or I'm a bad person, right? And there's the before and the after. And so to start doing those mindfulness exercise and to be a little more in my head, all of a sudden it was like those thoughts had come in, and now there were other, it's like there was a check-in station or something, and no one was at the desk to take the ticket of like, oh,
Wow.
here's a thought. And now all of a sudden I had 4 people at that desk, and they're like, no, let's talk about this.
Whoa.
And that was so powerful. And even completely outside of pornography, that helped me make decisions with school, with my
Yeah.
career, in my relationships. I was thinking about things in like a very different, out of body way
Yeah.
of, hey, like, okay, here's a situation, here's a thought. How do my emotions come into play on this? What do you think this is going to do for me? And it was, I sorry, that's a shame-centered thought of like, I wish I could have had that earlier, but I
Yeah.
genuinely do. I wish I could have
Yeah.
learned those lessons earlier. That would have made a lot of um, experiences go differently.
Yeah.
But at least I have them now, right?
Yep. I love that visual. I've never thought about that before. It's like when we're mindless, it's like a help desk with nobody
Yeah,
there. And so we're coming to it for help. We have these thoughts, we have these emotions, but there's nobody there to give us direction. I've never thought about it like that. But that really resonates with me because mindfulness was not designed to get rid of porn. That's not the
uh-uh.
purpose of it. It's to help us be more present and aware. And with that awareness, we can actually make decisions about what we want to do with thoughts and urges and emotions. But if we're not aware or present, there's no one at the help desk. And so we
Right.
do things that we don't want to do because there's nobody there to say, hey, let's think about this for a moment. What's going on and where would you like to go?
Exactly. And what a blessing it is to have that now, and to see that contrast of, ooh, I know what it's like to have people just waltz in right past the help desk and see what that does on the back end.
Yeah,
But to have those people there checking them and talking about them makes a huge difference.
that's
Huge
incredible.
difference.
Well, I already feel excited about our time together because I feel like as you talk about this, I'm learning where it's like, oh, wow, I've never thought about that. Because your perspective, I mean, you've studied and researched and struggled with this issue for so long. And I think I've come at it from a psychologist standpoint where I've looked at theories and approaches and kind of techniques and worked with people. But I think your perspective is one of lived experience. And I feel like that in many ways is so much more powerful than some expert coming in saying, hey, I think this might work. Hey, let's try this. And I think there's a role for that kind of expert who has some training. And I do value science and theory and evidence-based approaches. But in the end, those approaches are really designed to help people start to listen to their experiences better. And I'm just really excited to learn from you, Brian.
I appreciate that. You are certainly the expert, but I have a deep feeling that everyone who struggles with this is a reluctant expert on the topic.
Yep.
And they've looked up ways to stop. They've looked up everything from books to programs to therapists to. I'm excited for that knowledge that people have to be merged with this.
Yeah.
And it'll be really cool to see the results of that.
Yep. That's what we need. And I think that's a big myth I've seen where people that struggle with compulsive behaviors like porn viewing or eating or gaming or shopping, whatever it is, often the belief they have about themselves is they don't have enough self-control or they're not working hard enough. They need to try harder. And the opposite is true. Like you said, yeah, I've tried everything and researched everything, read everything. And it's like, yeah, you're actually working really, really hard at this. It's just that working in that way doesn't get us out of the labyrinth. It tends to get us more into the belly of the labyrinth and kind of more lost sometimes.
Exactly.
Well, I think this is a good start, Brian. So this is pretty scary. I think about a year ago, I did that first TED Talk where I wanted to highlight what this struggle is like for people and to highlight that awareness of emotions and mindfulness is key. And we've got this approach, acceptance and commitment therapy, that's really helpful. And doing that TED Talk was absolutely terrifying. And then from that, I developed Life After Pornography and recorded all these videos. And I've done a bunch of interviews and podcasts. And that was honestly really scary for me. But now I've done so many of those, I quite enjoy it. But for you, this is a beginning.
Yes, I'm excited. I've been so nervous this whole time. And again, this is not something I would have ever imagined me doing 2 years ago with no one knowing about this.
Yeah.
But I hope there's some hope in that.
Yeah.
That this is just a process. We're here to talk and learn about it.
Yep. What I think is amazing is you reached out to me and you volunteered for this, Brian. What is up with that?
I think a lot of people will do the same thing. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of thoughts shared, a lot of things that people have learned that will be brought to the light, and we'll see patterns. And I'm really excited. And that's one part of what has brought me here. Is this is a huge struggle for people, and a lot of people struggle with this. And so we're gonna help that.
We're gonna get to work, and I really do.
Right.
I value acceptance and commitment therapy, and I'm really hopeful that Life After Pornography is going to be a really helpful guide for a lot of people. But I also think you sharing your experience and the courage this takes to articulate what you have gone through and what you've learned and how you're applying this, I think that's going to be incredibly beneficial for people who have struggled.
Thank you. I'm glad I have the opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we said we were going to shoot for 30 minutes. I think we did it. So I'm looking forward to next week where we can continue this chat and keep learning from one another. And really, in the end, I think what we're both advocating for is more compassion for our own humanity and also more connection, that it's okay to talk about a struggle while we're going through it. We don't have to have a finished product to then to say, ta-da, I was struggling and I fixed it. Now I can show you. It's, I think, in life, we can struggle together. And I think that's the nature of relationships. We don't have to wait till we got it figured out to have friendships or to have partners or to really live our life. That living life includes struggle, and you're embodying that today.
Sure am. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it.
I love
And
it.
I do hope, sorry, I could stall all day, but I am not a finished product.
No.
I am dealing with this right now. I'm in the midst of it. So
Yeah.
I'm just excited to have that help someone.
Yep.
And to get their help in return.
I love that. And I would share in that I very much view myself as a fellow journeyer. I haven't arrived at the mountaintop and now I'm helping people get there too. It's like I'm walking. I just have a different path, and pornography is not a concern that I've struggled with in my life. But I got my own struggles and my own holes, and I get my own labyrinths that I get sucked into that are challenging. They're just called different things. And I think that is so relatable, and we can help people by not being critical about, oh, your labyrinth is different than mine. I don't like yours. It's like, we all got them. We can help each other.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. I'm excited.
Okay, this will be fun. Well, I hope you have a good evening, Brian. I look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Thank you so much. See ya.
See ya. Hey, thanks for listening. Please remember to rate and subscribe. I know you might be facing some issues in your life or know someone who is. Issues like anxiety, challenges in dealing with emotions, or other compulsive behaviors like unwanted pornography. And I know it's tough to talk to people about problems. Difficult to stare those obstacles down that we face in life and to really know how to deal with them. It's hard to know what to say and when to say it. And then when that moment you finally reach out to family and friends happens, sometimes it falls flat. I haven't found many programs teaching effective strategies like mindfulness, how to improve relationships, and ways to address unwanted pornography viewing through research-supported principles. So whether you simply want to help with a problem like unwanted pornography, difficulty responding to emotions, or just want to understand the world of someone struggling with porn a little better, head over to LifeAfterPornography.com and get in on the next training. There you'll learn the exact same strategies individuals addicted to pornography used to transform their lives by implementing principles from evidence-based treatment shown effective in research for reducing unwanted pornography viewing. You'll learn the secrets, the myths, the enemies to recovery, and the LAP framework for dealing with unwanted porn viewing that we call WAVE. If that's something that interests you, click the link in the description or just head over to LifeAfterPornography.com. I'm Dr. Cameron Staley. See you on the inside.